What is up, everyone? We're back. Friday, finally Friday, May 23rd, Memorial Day weekend, long weekend for most people. Always a good sports weekend with the Indy 500 going on. I know we have some members, some coordinators, perhaps, at the Indy 500. Got a full weekend of baseball. It's been a really fun week in the NBA playoffs. A bunch of good games there. We got stats with me today, as always on Fridays. We got a big-ass slate to talk about. How you doing, man?
Hanging in there. It should be actually a quick show. It's like play the Yankees, and we'll see you tomorrow.
Yeah, I think the show is going to be how do we play the Yankees? How do we get to them? I did the playbook today, just finished that up for the members. That is up on the site. Gave my full pitching thoughts and how to get to the Yankees, how to play the Yankees. So, we'll talk about it throughout the show. But if you're a member, go ahead and check that out. Discord's been popping all day. Everyone's excited about this one. We got the Yankees in Coors and then Phillies out in Sacramento after being in Coors. So pretty fun week for them, right? It's like going Disney World is what I put in the playbook for the Phillies this week, even though they did not get the job done on yesterday's afternoon slate. We got 12 games to go into, so let's just cruise through them and see what we like. Because the context of the slate is going to be how do we get to those bats, and if you're not playing them, do you like the top arm? I think the top arms are kind of in tough spots anyways, so I think it kind of lines up fairly clearly as to what we're going to do overall. We got to find some cheap bats to play them with, and there's some in this first game here down in your neck of the woods. Stats: Toronto's in town. Toronto at Tampa. We got Eric Lauer against Drew Rasmussen here. Really good hitting weather down there. Do you like either of these arms? And then what do we think about this game overall with the bats? We've seen Tampa in some good spots with the cheap right-handed power.
Yeah, I don't really love the arms for this one. I mean, the theme, like we said, we kind of joked about the Yankees, but we're really going to have to find cheaper arms today. So we do have a couple of guys here at the on the lower end of the price tag with Lauer at $7K, but they're not my favorite options down low here. So not a ton of kind of mediocre strikeouts here for Lauer, and Rasmussen about the same. So they're right around like 0.8, 0.85K per inning type of guys. I don't expect much. I do like bats in this game. I think you kind of mentioned we do have some cheap options. I mean, if you want to. If you're looking for a cheap option at catcher, Danny Jansen's been that guy here. I played quite a bit of him this week trying to fit in these Coors games. So if you want to maybe stay away from the catcher, stay away from Wells in that game, Jansen offers a pretty nice price here. $2,700 for a guy who has some upside here for a home run. I've got him at a 15% probability of hitting a home run. So you got to like that price tag. So, you got a couple other bats. Christopher Morel, $3,800. Caballero, $3,700. I think are reasonable prices. So I prefer the Tampa side of this game. I don't really love a lot on the Toronto side, but I think the Tampa side does offer some value with the best option being Yandy Diaz, but $4,600, a little pricey if we're going to stick him in with more expensive stacks.
Yeah, definitely prefer the Tampa side for bats. Rasmussen just doesn't get hit. Like, he doesn't go that deep in games, but he's really, really tough to hit, tough to stack rallies against him. Jansen stands out big time on the slate. We talked about, the Yanks and the Phillies, and we'll get into them in more depth later, but I'd argue maybe the weakest position for both of those teams at the cost is the catcher spot. So Jansen hitting fifth, 2,700, obviously a great play. I think he ends up being up in the playbook the highest owned bat on the entire slate, just because he fits so well with those teams. We'll talk about ways to get different there later in the show. But yeah, I mean, him, Curtis Mead's a pinch hit risk, but he's 2,100, first and second base eligible. We're just going to be trying to find these cheaper guys to get up to the big stacks here. So yeah, Morel hitting cleanup, 3,800. Caballero, shortstop and outfield. He's going to steal bases if he gets on base. So even though he's further down in the order, I do like him as well. Lauer has just been terrible. He went overseas, came back. He's not really a major league arm at this point, and they've been piggybacking him with Jose Urania, who we know is not a major league caliber arm. So you're getting 5-6 innings of the combo of those. The Tampa bats in that weather look pretty good. So yeah, it's all Tampa bats for me. Not on either pitcher here. I'm on a bunch of cheap ones, but just not ones from this game. Any last words here on Toronto, Tampa?
Yeah, I mean, just the other thing. I mean, I don't love the Toronto side, but there is a lot of savings there. So I mean, I think some people will play Toronto stacks. They're not awful. Some of the cheap bats in the Toronto line. You've got like Clement and
Barger's been good too. He's been driving the ball, hitting.
Barger was popular yesterday. I had him. Yeah, I had him in my he was my one-off yesterday, in my single entry and performed really well. So yeah. So I think some people will take that route. I just think there's better options here for stacks, but Toronto is a lot of cheap bats in there that are decent. Decent upside bats. I think the upside is greater on the Tampa side. That's all.
Yeah. Barger is kind of a all or nothing type of guy. Like he's up there trying to hit bombs, which is kind of what we want from the cheap guys, right? He should have had a bomb on Wednesday, robbed in dead center. The only reason I know that is because I had him on all three of my main teams. So he should be coming off 2 big games. So he's definitely my favorite play on the Toronto side. And then, it's the righties that you want for Tampa. Let's go to game 2. DraftKings has got the game in Fenway listed next. Baltimore at Boston. They're playing a doubleheader today. I'm not even sure. Is that first game done? I saw Boston was just going nuts late.
Yeah, I don't know if it's finished, but
it just finished up.
Okay, yeah, we don't have lineups yet.
19-5 Boston. The O's bullpen, as we know, has been a complete disaster the entire season. They have not announced a starter yet. It's either going to be Trevor Rogers or Charlie Morton. So keep an eye out there. If it is Morton, he's 5K on DraftKings stats. Obviously not a great park, but it is chilly there, and it's going to get colder as the day goes on. I think he's at least interesting at 5K. I mean, he'd be the cheapest pitcher on the entire board. We know he's been bad, but we do know that he has strikeout upside at least. And we're just trying to kind of survive the cheap pitching. So I actually, and we're probably going to say this about a bunch of games here because we're taking stabs on cheap arms, that I think you could play both sides of both teams in this game. Because I think Giolito is kind of the same way, where he has K upside if things are going well. And if things are not, he can get absolutely destroyed. We've seen that already this year. We've seen that throughout his career. What are you thinking for Baltimore, Boston?
Yeah, like you said, we're looking for those cheap pitching options. I think Giolito is not a bad option here in this game. So I kind of put a preliminary lineup in, and I'm using them. So in a single entry. So I think the price 6,500. What's up?
I said I'm glad to hear that because I have them too.
Yeah, I mean, I know you've got the whole Baltimore thing where it's like, when it's your team and they suck, it's like you always think
just know when they're going through it, right? Yeah,
exactly. So I think we've got some decent strikeout upside at that price. I mean, to get a pitcher at better than a K per inning for 6,500, I think is well worth it on a slate where we're looking at that ridiculous team total in Colorado. So I like Gio here. Matter of fact, I think there's enough options. You mentioned that we might get a 5K Morton. We'll see. I don't even know if you have to go down that low. There's some options here. There's enough cheap bats to go with the expensive bats that we're anticipating. I don't think we have that Yankee lineup yet, but if it's basically the Yankee lineup we're expecting with the bats and the prices, I don't even know if we need the 5K. We'll analyze it. I had Rogers in.
I think what they were doing was waiting to see. I think they're waiting to see if they needed to use either of those guys in the first game.
It doesn't look like I didn't watch any of the game, but at 19-5, I would assume they didn't have to.
No,
they didn't have to use them. So, I had Rogers as like my 10th best option pitching. he'll be in the mix. But I've got a bunch of guys cheaper than him that I'm going to play over him. So in the 150 builds, yeah, he'll be a part of it. But Giolito, I think makes it into it's going to want to make it into the core.
Yeah, I'm less interested in Rodgers just because of the price, but Morton at 5K, I think you can definitely make some interesting teams with him. He's obviously been terrible this year, but we do know, like you said, like he at least brings a strikeout upside in cool weather in Boston. Obviously, that didn't matter in the first game, but you sometimes see some odd things happen in these doubleheaders too, where you get one game that goes nuts and one that doesn't. We did see Alex Bregman got hurt in the first game, so he's not going to be in the lineup. That helps too. So I'm on both arms here, which is kind of weird with this total, but it's just the style of pitchers that they are, right? Like you're grasping for a big strikeout game from Giolito, and like I put in the playbook, Orioles' third highest strikeout rate in the split against righties the last month. They're just a team that hasn't really done a whole lot, and Giolito obviously has the arm talent to get this done. So yeah, I'm on both arms here, but this is also a spot where I wouldn't be surprised if either of these stacks are in the winner case or based on their team totals. Are you be playing any of these bats here?
Yeah, I think I think you do want to play the bats as well, especially the Baltimore side. We'll see what the lineups look like here when they come out, but I think the Baltimore side of this game is actually a little more interesting for me than the Boston side. I think Laureano's still a cheap price at 3,300, so I like that. Rushman 4,100. I like the Baltimore bats a little bit more. So yeah, obviously, I mean that's typical when you're looking at 6K pitchers. A lot of times you're going to kind of like the bats as well if you're playing 150 builds, on the other side. So yesterday, who was it? Was it McCullers yesterday? There was two slates yesterday. I'm forgetting, against Seattle, and he was in my core, and I like the Seattle bats as well. But in my single entry, I just went with McCullers. Like it's a similar situation, I think.
Dude, I had such a good lineup with McCullers that start where he couldn't get out of the first inning. I think I got like 10th in the 3-3-3 with a -14 from McCullers or whatever. So that was pretty frustrating to see last night. But yeah, no, I think that's just kind of the context of the slate is, the reason we're playing these cheap pitchers isn't because we think that they're going to do awesome. It's because we're trying to get 15 out of them. So obviously the stacks against them are going to be pretty good. Yeah, so wouldn't mind.
I think when I go to the cheap route here, I mean, really all pitchers, but especially on the cheap end, can they just get me strikeouts?
Yeah.
And then you're hoping, because usually there's something else going on, with a guy who could get strikeouts and their cheap price. Typically they're high walk guys. So, a guy like Rodgers is going to walk guys. Giolito is going to walk guys. That's typically what you get. So you're just hoping we could get a day where, they keep the walks to a minimum. They don't get touched up, and we just get a bunch of Ks. You're looking for potential. That's all you're really banking on.
Yeah. And both of these bullpens are worn out. So if these pitches are going well, I expect them to go deep in the game, so there is upside for that. Both teams bullpen. Yeah. The Red Sox used 6 or 7 arms in game 1. So did the O's. So I do like both arms here, despite the spot. This is just a really good MME slate in general, I think, just because, we don't have a ton of conviction. There's some slates where we're basically like, hey, we're playing these 2 arms and that's it. And these are clearly the best plays. I think with this slate, like we said at the top, we're just kind of trying to survive pitching. I want to take a quick side to talk about what Dwayne brought up. The King of the Diamond is back tonight. I think a lot of people misunderstand like the optimal way to go about this. I know that you've talked about it. You want to talk about it real quick before we move on? Just like what your approach is with this?
Yeah, I mean, the Yankee game tonight would not be the way I would go. You're looking, what did someone hit for like 83K? They hit recently. Like that's what you're looking for. Maybe not 80, but I wouldn't mind.
You're also not stacking a game. Like you want pieces from different.
That's right.
So the way I do it is I'll pick a higher total that's not the most popular, and I'll pick one of the guys down in the order or like not their, most popular hitter, right? Because that's when you're going to win is, say the Phillies are on the winner tonight for this, and like Real Muto hits the home run, or like Johan Rojas or something like that. That's when you get the big payout. So that's kind of how I do it.
I'll post something like I try to do it whenever they do this, the King of the Diamond, and I'll give a probability of the team being the highest scoring team and that player hitting a home run.
Right.
And you just, you could use whatever method you want, but you're going to want to try to pick some guys who have a relatively decent, like, being 2 or 3% on that number is pretty high.
Yeah.
And look for guys that just are going to get overlooked in that range, which is going to be either because of the team or the players. So you want really good home run hitter on a team with not a very high team total, or a mediocre home run hitter on a team with a high total. Like, that's kind of the way I'm looking at it.
Yeah, I mean, the point isn't to win the home run parlay. So
correct.
That's
You're hoping if you could hit $5,000 on the King, that's a great score on the King of the Diamond thing. The 83K the other day. When you hit for 200, it's nice, but it's not really what we're going for.
Something like this being there. You play the Yankees, but you pick Jordan Vivas to be the guy who hits the bomb.
Even that won't pay out what you think, because all the Yankees are going to get played.
Right. All right, let's keep it moving. I just wanted to talk about that real quick. Let's do Cleveland at Detroit. We've got Slade Ciccone here making his, I believe, second start of the season. Looked good in his first outing. Big prospect against another huge prospect, Jackson Jobe. We haven't really seen the big upside from him yet. He hasn't really gotten the strikeout stuff going for Jobe. Still believe in the talent long term. Are you interested in either of these pitchers here? I wrote up Jobe as an option. I wish he was a bit cheaper though.
Yeah, I'm kind of off on Jobe here. Not enough strikeouts for me with a high walk rate. I'm going to pass. Again, there's just some better options, I think, at similar prices. And then when with Ciccone, a little bit more interest, but he does have better strikeout potential. Not as wild, but the projection as far as runs against here, not optimal. But I think he's more of a play for me. Ciccone is than Jobe. So I not going to have much. Zero Jobe and just very small amount of Ciccone in my 150 builds.
Yeah. What I do when I do the playbook is I'll start with like the pool, and as I'm researching and writing, I'll start to cross guys out. I think that might be it here for Jobe. This might be a kind of a cross out game in general for me. Do you have interest in the bats here? Tough park.
Yeah, it's tough. I mean, I think the best bet, I think Naylor potentially, if you want to go that route, and if you're still looking at a cheaper catcher and you don't want to play Jansen, I think Naylor is a quality play at 3K. It's going to be just a little bit more expensive. I like Jose Ramirez, but I'm not paying $5,500 on this slate for Ramirez. So I'm kind of staying away. And, Detroit, you've got, I like Carpenter. Same thing though. I'm not paying $4,100 for Carpenter. I think there's some better spots. And in my mind, I'm just thinking about secondary options. There's one team I have in mind today that's a really good secondary stack. And
I'm going to be pumped to pick the same one as me because I really like it, and I think it's going to go overlooked.
I don't know. All right, well, we'll see. We didn't get there yet, so we'll see. We'll see when we hit it.
For this game, I just kept a couple of the cheap bats. We've got Angel Martinez hitting second for Cleveland today. He's 2,900, second base and outfield eligible. And then Colt Keith hitting third for Detroit, first and second base. You could probably do worse than those two. We're already behind, so we got to keep it moving here. Let's go to the Mets. The Dodgers are in town. Big series in New York. We got Clayton Kershaw making his second start. The first one didn't go so well against Griffin Canning, who's been really good on paper, but extremely lucky so far. Any interest in the arms? And then what are you doing with this game overall?
Yeah, Canning has been pretty lucky. I'm going to pass on both arms in this game. Canning's been pretty good with the strikeouts, but just not enough for me. A little, again, I worry about the control with Canning. Kershaw, I'm not ready to start rostering. Certainly not at 8K. So I've got no interest in Kershaw or Canning in this game. I think, the bats, Ohtani's always a thing. One thing about Ohtani today, you want to play him, you're going to get him at a extremely low, like probably about as low an ownership as you can get him, because no one's going to be really focused on these games, and no one can afford the 6,500 on Ohtani when they're going to be piling in on Yankee bats. So if you want to get contrarian and play a Dodger stack, I don't particularly like the full Dodger stacks either tonight. I kind of, I mean, if you're going to play the Dodgers, it gets a little expensive or a lot expensive, but they will be very low owned.
Yeah.
I don't mind the Met. Like, I don't mind Vientos here at 3,300 as a one-off or part of maybe a secondary stack. So I kind of like the Mets a little bit more than I do Dodger bats here, but strictly on a secondary stack level.
Yeah. I mean, like I said at the start, I think it's just such a good tournament slate. Like, if you're a contrarian player, this is a really good slate because you're going to get some good totals, really low owned. Like, the Dodgers have a 5-team total here. Everyone's under 2 or 3%. We know that they're a top 3 offense in baseball. We know that Canning has been super lucky. I put it in the playbook. What is it? 91.3% strand rate so far, 100% over the last month. He stranded every hitter that he's put on base in the last month. The Dodgers don't tend to strand as many hitters as other teams. I think it's an interesting spot. Like, this is the fully operational battleship Dodgers lineup now that Edman's back, Teoscar's back. I think they're interesting, man. Like, if you're playing a bunch of lineups, I'm playing 20. I'll probably have 1 or 2 with Dodgers here. Like, there are times where they beat the Phillies here. There are times that they beat the Yankees, and I don't know. I can't get away from playing this fully healthy lineup at such low ownership. I think it's interesting.
It's definitely interesting. I mean, if you did something like a Yankee stack without Judge and replaced it with Ohtani, like that would be interesting.
Stuff like that. Yeah. Stuff like that's fun on the slate, because you're going to have to find ways to get unique, and that's definitely one of them. All right, let's go to Atlanta. We got the Padres in town, rematch of some playoff series last couple of years. Really good pitching matchup. The first one of the slate, we got Nick Pivetta and Chris Sale. Nick Pivetta kind of priced to the moon here. We talked about that at the start of the show. Studs priced up in tough spots, but Chris Sale, man, he's been awesome over the last month. And I don't think the price tag is quite high enough yet. But again, not a clean matchup against a low strikeout team with the Padres. What do you think?
I mean, I have Sale listed as my number 1 pitcher on the slate, all things included, price and everything. So, yeah, I mean, certainly in the 150 bills, it's just not going to get my single entry because I'm going to try for cheaper pitching there. But I think it's the best pitching option. If you're going to go contrarian and stay away from the Yankees, then I think you go heavy on Sale. That's kind of the way I would play it in MMEs. But yeah, when I look down at where I've got Pivetta, it's not good. I've got him way down on the list. I mean, it's just too expensive of a price for what we're getting here, and I would actually just kind of X him out on my 150s. I don't like it. Yeah, I like the Atlanta bats.
Yeah. Go ahead. We get Acuna back tonight.
We get Acuna. We'll see what we get there. I mean, it's a little pricey, and I would assume he's not going to get a ton of ownership, but Riley, Ozuna, Acuna, I like all those guys. I like a lot of the top bats here. The Olsen, Harris, Murphy. I like all those guys. They're going to show well. I'll get the boom report out after the show, but those guys should all show up pretty well on the boom report tonight. San Diego bats are going to be well down on the report. So really, that's another contrarian play here. I think Atlanta probably won't see all that much interest, especially Acuna coming back off injury. I think people will kind of stay away.
Yeah, I think Atlanta minis are interesting. The power bats here. We've seen Pivetta, we've seen it go back. Like, he's been good overall on the season, but the 2 times that he's gotten blown up, it's gone real bad. I don't really want to do the full stack because the Padres pen is so scary. But I do like the one-off power bats here, and it's just like you said, with the Yankees or the Philly stacks, you replace one of those mid-range guys with a Riley or an Olsen who's been red hot. And I do think that's interesting. Sale. I'm going to try to get to him on my main. I don't think it's going to be possible, but I think by far the best pitching play on the slate, despite the tough strikeout matchup. We've seen him.
If we get the 5K on Morton and you
Yeah.
want to go that route, then it's doable.
Yeah.
With Sale,
because like his stuff is good enough that he's able to beat the tough matchups. We saw it in Coors, we saw it in Fenway last time. He is fully dialed in. I think he's the one guy on this slate that could give you the 30, 35 at pitcher. And he's not yet 10K. So I think he's the first guy that we've talked about on the pitching side that I'm super, super interested in and is going to be like a priority. Because if this was a different slate, like say the Yankees weren't in Coors, Sale would be 50+% owned on this slate,
Yeah. Yep.
So that is interesting. All right, let's go to my neck of the woods. We got Texas at the White Sox. Pretty chilly. We're talking about before the show how I'm bummed that I can't spend the Memorial Day weekend at my pool that just opened. It's in the low 50s right now here. Going to be chilly tonight. We got Tyler Mahle and Sean Burke going. Mahle, again, another one of these pitchers that's priced up. I think he's priced up too high, but what do you think here?
Yeah, I agree. I think he's priced too high. You're always going to get people playing pitchers against Chicago, the White Sox, that is. So you may get a little bit of ownership, but I don't think much. Not at 9,600, that's for sure. So I'm off him. I've got him as one of the worst options. Now Burke is interesting. I actually like Texas. That was the team I'm looking at as my secondary stacks because I think we have
a different one now. Nice.
Okay, well they fit really nicely with the Yankees when I was looking at it. If you look at some of the cheaper options, when you've got Peterson at 2,400 at first base, that alone, it's going to save you saves a couple of bucks. Josh Young at third at 3,600, I think fits in well. Burger is always what was up?
Haggerty's leading off again.
Yeah, so you've got some cheap options here, and I don't know. It's always it kind of updates as we go on Saber, but relatively, 5-6% kind of ownership, 7 to 8% maybe on the high end. I don't think they're going to be particularly crazy owned the Texas bats. I kind of like that's where I'm leaning right now. We'll see if that changes after the show, but the preliminary lineup that I put in there was a Yankee Texas stack. With that said, you might be interested in taking a Burke for the White Sox at 5,500. It's just not going to make. I mean, he'll make the cut in the 150 builds. Obviously, not in my single entry as I'm looking at it right now. But I think you can make the case. I think he's got as strong a K upside as some of these other guys who are down, at a much higher price. I mean, we just talked. You talk about the pitcher he's going up against, Mahle. I think he's got better K upside than Mahle does. So it's just he doesn't have the. Again, we're worried about the control and obviously the potential to give up runs in this game are a lot higher. But at 5,500. I wouldn't argue against taking a stab if that's the route you wanted to go, and obviously you didn't want to play the Texas bats.
Yeah, I mean 5 walks and back-to-backs.
That's the problem.
No, I do like the Texas bats. They just aren't like my favorite cheap one, but they do fit well. Jake Berger too. I wish he was something else besides first base. He's been red hot since they called him back up. They sent him back down for kind of a mental break, and he's been red hot since getting called back up. So yeah, no, I kind of like it too. I feel like this spot the last couple of weeks, the cheap team playing the bad team has been way owned, but like this is, like you said, this is all way lower than I thought it was going to be. So yeah, no, I'm in on this. I think it's more of secondary stuff because it's gonna be tough for a 5-man, I think, to get there, but that could be wrong. I do like Texas here. No Mahle for me. I think I like, if it ends up being Morton, I think I like Morton's strikeout potential upside over Burke, despite the tougher matchup on paper facing the Red Sox.
Yeah, if Morton's in there, it's going to change what the ownership here is on Burke. So and it's going to and consequently may change the ownership on the Ranger bats. So, I mean, we might get like Sabres looking at 8% on Burke, which normal slate he's pretty much unowned. So
Yeah,
if you so yeah,
only,
so this is
only DC's playing him. Usually
DC. Yeah, it's definitely a DC type of play, but yeah, all these pitchers are in the mix here tonight. But yeah, that's going to change. Like you said, if Morton's in there at 5K, I agree with you. I would probably prefer Morton over Burke, but in 150 builds, I think you got to get some exposure here to Burke.
Yeah. All right, let's go to another game with shitty pitchers. We got Seattle at Houston is up next on the DK list. Ryan Gusto and Emerson Hancock, two guys who are cheap, who have not been good this year. Gusto was in the pen for the last couple of weeks. They're pushing him back into the rotation because Blanco got hurt. And Hancock was actually a pretty big prospect, but has not put anything together at the major league level. Only 25 strikeouts in 33 innings so far. Got a 6.21 ERA. What are you thinking here? This is kind of the game where I feel like bats could be pretty sneaky, but they're just not going to pop over like the big team totals.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think both pitchers are at least options. Like you mentioned here with Hancock. I mean, just the strikeouts are really what's disturbing here. We're not going to get. We don't have a good strikeout projection. Certainly not a good K per inning projection. It's the worst on the slate. He's down at like 0.6 K per innings. At least projected wise here for tonight. Not really good. It's just that 5,800 price tag that would give you interest. But I think you've got. I think Burke's a better option. That we just spoke about at 5,500. Morton would be if he's in there at 5K. I think there's a better options for us. And then on the Houston side with Gusto, I'm not that worried. I don't mind that 6,200 for what I think we could get for Ks. It's another guy. It seems like a broken record, but it's another guy with decent K upside and control issues. So I think he's in play.
Do we have a K prop on him? Because he's been out of the bullpen the last couple. I'd feel better about him if we've got a K prop. Let me pull that up while you're talking.
Yeah, I could. I'll grab that for you right now. I don't have my sheet up, but I've got him at least on the projections. I've got his K. Yeah, Gusto's 4.5, but it's juiced to the under. So
yeah. I mean, like my only concern there is like he hasn't thrown more than 70 pitches since April.
Well, that's the number you got to look at here, and I'm looking at that too. Is the pitching outs, and it's really low, 13.5 outs, -140 to the under. So that's your concern.
I think for that reason, I'm probably out on this big slate on Gusto, especially if we get like a Morton in play. Any bats here? These are two bad arms, but two struggling offenses. I feel like I've tried to make Houston work too much lately. They're so cheap. They're so enticing at these price tags.
Yeah, it's happened to me also. Getting in on.
What is going on with Christian Walker? He's 3,400. He cannot do anything. I play him every day.
I think I threw him on the a few days ago. I think I had him on the cover of the Boom Report. I'm like, I think I did the show. I think I did Tuesday. I did the show, and I think it might have been Tuesday when I was pretty high on Walker. But yeah, no, it just hasn't worked out. I think the Seattle side is actually more interesting. Look, we've talked about it on the show before. I think when you get these Seattle bats outside of Seattle, they've been pretty good plays. So Raleigh, Rosarena, up at the top of the list. They've got they've got a bunch of home run guys who hit home runs. Polanco. So I do like Seattle. I like Seattle stacks more so than the Houston stacks, but I don't know. I mean, Houston's it's extremely tempting when you've got a Walker at 3,400, Pena at 3,900.
They're going to fit so well.
That's it, and it's like for the price, I'm not gonna fight you to play Houston. I don't mind it. Certainly in 150 builds, I'll have plenty of it. So I like the bats both sides of this game. Houston, I think we've got more. Actually, it's when I'm looking at the Boom Report, we've got more like kind of in the high middle, and the extremes are more the Seattle guys. So it's like so that's like screaming two and 3 man stacks on Seattle. And if you're going to go with Houston, you might as well just go all in and just give it a shot. Like, bats are cheap.
Yeah, I think would be interesting with Houston is like a full stack because no one's even 4K, and then you pick off some big bats from the Yankees or Phillies or something like that. Ohtani. I think it's interesting. I think I'm gonna have some Houston tonight. Didn't come into the show planning to play Houston, so I'm sure that'll go well.
I think if you're playing, especially if you're single entry three maxing something like that, like if you're not playing the Yankee, like if you're not going to play the Yankees in a 5-man, I would almost just not play it.
Yeah,
and like you just said, like, oh, okay, I'll use maybe the Dodgers as that secondary set, right? Because it's like the Yankees are going to just, I mean, you're either going to pick like the only two bats that hit a home run for the Yankees tonight, or that lineup scoring 14, and you're screwed anyway. So I'd rather just punt it, or either play the 5-man or just not play the Yankees at all and go with the Ohtanis and Betts or something like that. These guys who are expensive but overlooked tonight. Yeah.
B-Nair's got a good point in the chat. Yeah, they have not faced many lefties at all, and for good reason. Whoever built this team did not build it very well because they had one lefty and he's hurt. All right, let's go to what's the next one? Minnesota, KC at the Twins here. Pablo Lopez, who's been excellent, priced up here at 9,900 in a low strikeout matchup against Kansas City against Noah Cameron, who has had 2 good starts so far. But the underlying stuff I think is concerning. I want to hear what you think about this game first.
Yeah, so Lopez I've got is my seventh best option on the slate. Metrics look really good. It's the price tag, 9,900. It's going to be a little steep for this slate, but certainly going to make the 150 cut. I'll have some bits there. Cameron, 8,500. I think is just too high a price, so I'm gonna lay off. I've got him as 16th best pitcher on the slate tonight. Just not enough Ks for me to get to that price tag. The control, a little bit of an issue, and I'm anticipating Minnesota being able to score. What's that team total? But it's a decent team total, right? They're kind of mid to the higher end on the team total. We're expecting obviously more of Minnesota with a better chance to win the game and get us those points. So I don't particularly care for bats in this game. If I was, it's going to strictly be Minnesota bats. I have no interest in the KC bats at all. It's going to be.
This is my cheap spot. This is my cheap
really?
spot.
Oh wow! Who do you with Minnesota?
Look at the price tags. Look at the price tags of their top 5, their top 6.
100%, they're cheap. Yeah, no, there's no doubt about it. I mean, you look at the top of the lineup. You got 3,200 in Lewis and 30. I mean, all these guys are under 4K. I don't think they have a guy over 4K tonight in the lineup. So yeah, there's certainly and they will not be owned. So you've got that down. Now they just have to perform.
Yeah, no. So I think people are going to avoid them because this Royals arm has had 2 good starts, but like the underlying stuff is terrible. He's got 6 Ks in 12 innings, 5 walks. His stuff in the minors was pretty concerning too. I don't think he's going to be a good pitcher in the major leagues, and I kind of like that he had a couple good outings because I think that's just going to lower ownership here. And they're just so cheap. Like Jeffers leading off against a lefty, I think he's an elite pivot. If you have the 1,000 from Jansen, I think Jeffers with power against a lefty. Royce Lewis up to the 2-hole at 3,200. That's got to be the cheapest we've seen Royce Lewis in years. Correa cheap at short, clean up 3,400. I think it's just more of a, pick a 2 and 3 mans of the Twins. But I think they're just going to fit really well. Got Brooks Lee second and short. He's been swinging it for 3,100. I just think that these guys are going to fit well too. And I think they're going to get a bit overlooked against a pitcher that I think is really performed over his head through 2 starts. So that's kind of where I'm at on the Twins.
They're definitely going to get overlooked. They're not going to be high owned, and the price fits. So that they've.
Yeah, I mean it's a context of the slate thing, right? Like we're trying to make the prices fit, and it's a spot where I'm going to take a chance on a young pitcher who has clearly been pitching over his head, and I expect it to come back down to earth. All right, we got 4 games left. We got 15, 20 minutes. We'll keep going because we got to talk about the 2 big games. But let's go to St. Louis first. 8:15 Eastern. We got Zach Gallen and the nemesis Miles Michaelis always seems to Houdini his way through innings. Put that in the playbook. His rates on the season: 210 batting average on balls in play, 94% left on base percentage, and only 5% home run per fly ball for Michaelis. What do you think about this game here? Do you have any interest in Gallen? I think he's a bit overpriced. And what do you think about the Snakes bats here?
Yeah, I have zero interest in either pitcher. I've got him as two of the worst options on the entire slate, based on the price here. Michael is just not a strikeout guy.
Yep.
That's 6,800 is too expensive. So I'm going to pass on those guys. Yeah, I think the Snakes are the side. If you're going to play bats here, definitely like them. And Gurriel, I mean, I'm trying to look for these cheaper options. Gurriel at 3,500, not terrible. Carroll's always one of the top plays for me on any slate, but we're going to be paying up quite a bit there. Suarez, good option. So yeah, I like the bats. They're just a little, on the whole, they're just going to be a little pricey. But again, if you're not playing Yankees, I don't mind Arizona stacks tonight at all.
Yeah, so this was my first bet of the day, was the Snakes team total over 4.5 here. I feel like if this were a slate that didn't have the Yankees and Coors, this would be a really owned spot. And you get the Snakes, who have been the number one offensive baseball against right-handed pitching, against Michaelis, who we know gets blown up and has been super lucky with a bunch of regression coming. They're priced up enough where they're going to get completely ignored on this slate. That's why we said earlier, like, this is a great MME slate. Like, if you're playing a bunch of lineups, I would definitely play Diamondbacks. I like them more than, the other teams that we're talking about, like the Twins and the Astros. I think they're up there with like the Dodgers as like the best contrarian plays on the entire slate. We know that Michaelis has starts where he just gets absolutely bombed, and you're betting on the best offensive baseball against right-handed pitching besides the Yankees. So I really, really like the spot. I love the team total over. I'm definitely going to be playing some Snakes. I'm with you, though. I've got neither pitcher in my pool here. Any thoughts on that before we move on?
No, I totally I could get behind it. Yeah, I mean, Arizona.
It's just such a great slate to play a bunch of lineups.
Well,
because like this,
yeah, I mean, there's a lot of options.
We're in Coors, that would be 20% owned. Against.
Yeah, look, it's not. I think, and we're going to get to that game. We're going to get to that Coors game now, but I just think it's. I think if you just play the Yankees here all weekend, you're gonna come out ahead. I think that's so. Personally, I'm just going to be shoving Yankees.
Yeah. All right. Well, let's talk about the game. We were able to stall long enough that we did get the lineup. So we have the lineup in. I'll just let you have the floor. What do you think about this game here?
Well, I mean, we've kind of alluded to it, talked about it quite a bit, but we didn't talk about the pitcher, and I think Schmidt is really in play. That's kind of been a theme this year, playing pitchers in Colorado against Colorado. It's a minor league lineup, so this is it's kind of AAA here, and at 7,200, more than a K per inning, I think Clark Schmidt is going to be he's going to be popular, but it probably, when I just kind of glancing at it before the show and trying to make a lineup, it was Schmidt and Gio for me right now as my options, playing them with Yankees. So I like that. I mean, there's nothing more you could say about the Yankees. I mean, there's not a bad. I'm just trying to see. Were there any significant differences in the?
We don't have Bellinger in there. We've got the double first base. So I think the way that we talk about it, stats, is like, how are you playing them? Are there ways to get unique? Stuff like that. Is I think the interesting way to talk about it. Like, so we've got the pitcher in Colorado, obviously going to be overmatched here. He is a right-handed pitcher here. So, any thoughts on how to get unique with the Yankees? We talked about it a bit earlier, like with the Ohtani one-off, stuff like that.
Yeah, you could certainly do that. I'm looking at the projected ownerships in Saber, and I agree. I was going to say, I think playing Wells actually gets you, because I think a lot of people are going to go ahead and take a cheap catcher. So I've got Wells in there right now in my lineup. I would do that and look to get cheap elsewhere. There's some cheap There's some pretty good cheap options out in the outfield on this slate. There's plenty. We kind of went through. There's a bunch of cheap bats that you could play. I would stay away from the cheap catcher and try to and play Wells if I was going to play Yankees again. And then the other option, like you said, if you don't play Judge, if I didn't play Judge, I would probably look at that Ohtani, even if it's just a one-off, and get Ohtani in there because you're going to get him at
Corbin Carroll,
ridiculously low ownership. Yeah, I mean, what's the average Ohtani full slate ownership? It's got to be 15 to 20% on a full 10 to 12 game slate.
The 121 is usually 30 plus.
Right. Depending on that, right. I mean, it depends on how many games, but yeah. Well, and then when you play the 121, you play single entry, high stakes. The top plays are always going to be inflated on their ownership. So you're going to get him. I mean, in that 121 tonight, Ohtani at what? Half that? Maybe less.
I think less. I think 10 or less.
Maybe 10. Yeah. So this is your chance. It's not like there's anything different with him. It's just it's relative to the slate. So you're taking a shot there. I don't mind that play. Yeah. Even if you played it. Yeah, I don't really like that. I was kind of throwing that idea in my head playing 4. Like I think you either go for the 5 or you don't.
Oh yeah, no, I'm playing 5 here. I think playing the back half is interesting too. Volpe under 10, Wells under 10. Everyone that plays a first baseman here is going to click on Rice or Goldschmidt. You could play LeMahieu. He's cheap. I think kind of like the back half of this lineup is interesting too. Obviously,
LeMahieu's my least. So he's my least favorite of the entire lineup. So
yeah, I mean,
he's
he has
got to leave it out. Yeah. Obviously, he's cheaper. A lot of people will play him just because of the price. Vivas is going. I mean, he's batting 9th here, 3,300. They're projecting like 12. One of the lower projections. I bet you he's going to be higher just because everyone's just going to be like, well, he's the one cheap guy could fit in with the Yankees.
Yeah, I actually just updated on Saber and he jumped to like 18.5. So.
Okay. Yeah. Well, that makes sense then. Yeah.
I think like playing Dominguez over Grisham is interesting at the same price. Stuff like that. I'm probably more apt to drop down in the order than you are for like a single entry thing. I don't think you're giving up that much playing Jason Dominguez over Grisham. All right. So I didn't talk about the pitching. I'm with you. I think he is a main lineup play. We've seen over the last couple of weeks, these pitchers in cores, even in cores, get priced up, and they didn't do that here. So I really like Schmidt. I think he'll probably be in my core here. Any last thoughts on this game before we talk about the last two?
No, I think we talked about that game quite a bit.
Yeah, well, it deserves it. All right, let's go to LA, Miami, and the Angels here. Kikuchi and Sandy Alcantara, who's had a rough go of it this year. One of the more unlucky pitchers in the league, though. I'm on both arms here. I'm interested to hear your thoughts on these arms here. We know that the Angels had a huge week in Sacramento. Now they come back home. Kind of think that teams are going to have kind of like what happens with cores, some letdowns after series in Sacramento. And the Angels against right-handed pitching, man, they just strike out a ton. Even in that A's series, they have the highest strikeout rate in baseball against right-handed pitching. It's not comfortable to click Sandy right now. He's got the lowest left on base rate in the entire league. That's going to regress back to the mean with his huge ground ball rate. I think better days are ahead for him. This is an interesting matchup here against a team that's really right-handed. He's been, even in his struggles this year, has been good against right-handed bats. So I think it's kind of an underrated spot for Sandy. I think he's an interesting pivot to guys like Schmidt around him in that same price tag. What do you think about the pitchers here?
Yeah. I think, if you're projecting him out, he's mid. He's mid all the way around, including his price, which is why I have him right in the middle. I've got him like the 11th option pitching here. So nothing fantastic as far as the metrics, but nothing awful either. So I think he does make the mix. And I agree. You can make an argument where he's a decent pivot, maybe off of Schmidt or something like that. If you want to get a little bit different, you're gonna have to pay a little bit more. But Kikuchi is one of my favorite options on the entire slate.
Yep.
Second best. I've got him number 2 behind Sale here, and just ahead of Schmidt. So I don't know where do I have? Oh, I've got all right. He's going to be owned according to Saber, which makes sense. So I probably don't like him honestly at that ownership at what they're looking at Sabre, which is nearing the 30% mark. That might be a little much. I wouldn't mind getting under, and I'd actually get over on Schmidt and Sale, and get just a little bit under on Kikuchi. But overall, without trying to play the game here, I've got him as my number 2 option. Bats wise, listen, I like Angel bats. The Angels, they seem to, the price has been good for the potential. I've liked them a lot on this show and the other shows they do, and it's classic. They're a great boom sheet type of team because they do have guys who can hit some home runs, but they'll disappoint you on quite a few nights. For Nato, you're paying up here 4,900, but you've got a guy with pop and high stolen base probability. Joe Adele I didn't even look at the lineup. I'm assuming I'm basing this off of what I had before. If Adele's not in there,
they got Lugo in there.
He's not in there. Okay, yeah. So
Taylor Ward has been crazy good.
Ward's been good. Yeah, I mean, so I've got him as at 3,800. I got him as like just behind Nato here in the lineup. So I like those are my 2 favorite Angels, and I'll rerun it here for the updated lineup as soon as we get off. But yeah, I never mind playing Angels, especially I think in this matchup. I don't mind. Now you said there could be a little bit of a hangover coming off that series.
Yeah, but
maybe it's going to be like a Colorado.
Yeah,
but yeah, I'm not going to put much weight into that. I like the Angels. I like Angel bats. I always like them as a secondary stack just because I think they've got a lot of pop in their lineup. So I like secondary stacks all the time with Angels.
Yeah, the way I'm playing this, I'm playing both pitchers just because it's just like you said with the Angels lineup, they're going to strike out a ton, and they've got the ability to hit bombs. I don't mind taking power pitchers against that. This is the highest K prop of the season for Sandy. It's actually not too far behind Kikuchi's. And then, Kikuchi's popping because of the K prop, and the Marlins are like the middle of the road-ish against righties. They are terrible against left-handed pitching, dead last. Weighted runs created plus over the last month in the split against lefties. So I like both arms here. I'm going to keep Angels minis in the pool just because of the power, right? Like we saw it with Ohapi the entire week. Him, Ward, guys like that. I think I'm super interested in here, even though I do have some Sandy. All right, let's go to the last game. We are back in Sacramento. The Phillies come to town. One of the best pitchers in baseball. I think you could argue maybe the best. Zach Wheeler has a tough task tonight at 11K against fly ball pitcher Jeff Springs at home here. What do you got for the last game?
Yeah, obviously the Philly bats are going to be pretty good. I think this is probably your second best option after the Yankees. So, I mean, this is I pretty much like the entire Philly lineup. So not much else to say about that. So now Springs. This is one of the situations where Springs actually pops fairly high for me on my sheet, but when I just like the offense too much for Philly, so that's what kept me off. Like I'm like, do I like Springs or Giolito? I'll take Giolito against Baltimore in the second half of a doubleheader than Springs. So he actually rated out higher for me than Giolito did by one spot, but I'm going to pass him up for Gio. So Springs, I'm going to mix him in there in my 150 builds, but and maybe probably I didn't look at the ownership. I guarantee
we actually just got news apparently during the show that they scratched Springs. I missed.
Oh, you couldn't? Okay, I did not see it.
I didn't see it either.
Who's did we know who's in there?
Jacob Lopez looks like it's gonna be a bullpen game for the A's.
Yeah, this could get ugly. Yeah,
I think Phil ugly for like the pinch hit guys at the bottom of the order for so that's why we don't have the Phillies lineup yet. Is the scratch?
Right. Yeah.
I
think the Phillies are a pretty good pivot off the Yankees if you want to go that route.
And I mean, I'm seeing under 5% for Trey, Bryce, and Schwarber here because everyone's going to the Yankees. I mean,
What are they going to do in high stakes? What do you think the high stakes? Do you think the high stakes come in under Yankees from where the like the relay is?
Yeah, I mean, so I think the chalk build is going to be Yankees with Rays, mini with Jansen at catcher, with Schmidt and Kikuchi. I think is going to be like the highest lineup. But yeah, I mean, it's just kind of hard to even get over these projected numbers, right? For these Yankees bats, they're just going to be so owned. I haven't decided what I'm doing currently. I'll likely play a Yankees 5-man in the 121 and then be under in my 20, just because like these other spots we talked about, like Philly at under 5% in this spot in that park. We talked about the Diamondbacks, plays like that. Let's actually just get into that end of show stuff since we're almost at the end here. Let's start with the pitchers. Who are going to be your most important pitchers on this slate, do you think?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's going to be Giolito for me, considering I'm going to probably have him in my core. You know, Schmidt will be the other one, but I think a lot of people will be on that play. Gio much lower owned, so I think he'll be a key if he gets 15 to 20. I'm on a good. I think I'm in a good spot there.
Yeah, I'm dangerous. We're both in on Lucas Giolito at 2025. The price is just right though, so I'll go with. Since you took him, I'll go with Sandy just because of the high strikeout prop on him facing a boomer bust team. You know, they can obviously fail. We've seen it happen plenty this year for Sandy. I just like that as a pivot to Kikuchi, who's going to be twice as owned as him there. Let's do favorite non-Yankee stack.
Yeah, I think if you're not playing the Yankee stacks, I think you want the Philly stack. I think that's clearly going to be the way to go. And then if you took everyone's pretty much under the radar outside of the Yankees, but someone to fit with the Yankees, I'm going to lean Texas here if you want to look for a secondary stack to play with the Yankees.
Yeah. So outside of the top two, I think it's Arizona for me, just because of the potency of that offense. Like we talked about before, if these two teams were not in the elite spots that they were, I think that the Snakes would be the chalk of the slate. And then my favorite secondary,
Philly would be the chalk. Philly would be the chalk.
No. If those two,
if they both weren't there, okay, yeah.
And then I like the Twins minis, so that's probably the way that I'm going. We're a little bit over, but let's do a quick dong draft since it's a Friday. We'll give the people a dong draft on Wednesday. DC got 4 points on Wednesday because he had the Kurtz double dong at the 1.5x. He got the Varsho, and I had the Larry Butler. So we had a 5-point day on Wednesday, which was nice.
I keep going for the $3,500 hitters, and I'm just not. I'm not getting them, and I haven't not gotten any of them right.
I think
I'm going to stick that way, though.
Yeah, I think Kurtz is the first one I've seen for the cheap guys going off.
At least I played. At least he was in my. At least he was in my lineup that day.
Yeah. Oh yeah. All right, I'll give you first pick here.
I don't give a shit. I'm sticking with these 35. I'm gonna ride it till I die. I'm going Jake Berger under 3,500. Let's go. 1.5 back.
Jake Berger, got that written down. I'm gonna go also with the under 3,500 guy. I'm gonna go Royce Lewis hitting the 2-hole big time pop for the Twins.
Go ahead. You got one more.
And then I'm going to go to Arizona. Lourdes Gurriel, who we also talked about, 3,500. Gets the 1.5x if he goes yard today.
Yeah, someone in the chat said Vientos is scratched, scratch. I would have actually taken him. So I don't like a lot of these. I don't like a lot of home run from these sub 3,500. We're not going to go with like Judge or anything like that. I'm going to stay away from Yankees. We're going to make it a little more difficult. I'm going to go with Cal Raleigh.
Okay.
I'm going with someone over 3,500. I need to get on the board. I need to get some.
And then you get one more.
Yeah, let's go. Fuck it. I'm just gonna go with one super expensive guy, and then I'm gonna go with Danny Jansen. Let's go with a.
Oh, I already had him written down.
Did you have him written down? I'm gonna go there. I'm going to the 35.
No. So you get Jansen. That's gonna protect us when we try to get cute by playing an expensive catcher over 50% on Danny Jansen. At least you get the dong draft.
Yeah, exactly. When he hits 2. Yeah, when he hits 2 tonight.
I'm gonna go with a sentimental pick as the last one. Probably a bad pick today, but I'll go with Acuna and his return. Awesome to see him back in the fold. So I've got Royce Lewis and Lourdes Gurriel at the 1.5x. You've got Jake Berger and Jansen at the 1.5x. And then I've got Acuna. You've got Camporeale. Awesome. So we got all 12 games in. We got a big weekend ahead of us. We got NBA playoffs. So we got the Indy 500 with big contests. Maybe into that. But prior to that, we got the 12-game slate tonight with a 7.6 team total involved. Thanks, everyone, for hanging out. Stats, I'll see you next week.
You got it.
And good luck, everyone.